Hi everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and another paper crafting video tutorial. Today I'm super excited to be sharing some fun Christmas or holiday themed cards with the brand new coordinating dies from Simon Says Stamp that coordinate with Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous stamp sets for December 2023. We are going to start by building the background of our first card. I am using a brand new December release background plate. This is called the Snowflake Burst Pinpoint. This is actually going to be the base or background for each of my card designs today. Next, I am taking stamps from a couple of the 2023 collection stamp sets from Tim Holtz, the Santa from Jolly Holiday, and then the tree from the Winter Woodlands. In addition to the tree, I'm also taking this Christmas trees kind of label or sign from Winter Woodlands, and we're going to start by stamping that on the bottom of our Snowflake Pinpoint background with some ground espresso archival ink. It doesn't necessarily have to be archival. That was close in my drawer. I did want something that I wasn't necessarily going to have to worry about, smearing or anything like that. Once I have that stamped at the bottom, and this is really serving almost as a grounding feature for my card, I'm cleaning off whatever residual ink was left on my blending brush, and I am taking iced spruce and rustic wilderness inks and applying them to my background panel. Just kind of creating an all over green background for this card. The snowflakes or the pinpoint snowflakes will end up being very faint in the finished design, but I kind of prefer that, if you will. I like how they just kind of blend into that background. Look how beautiful this is. It is going to be very pretty. Now, once we have our background ink blended, we are going to be ready to add our elements on top. And as I was looking at the tree and the Santa, I decided I needed to add even more snow to this background. So I will be spritzing this with Frozen Fog Distress Mica Stain and some white gouache. And that's really going to add to the snowy effect. I like to use a plastic box for doing all of my splatter and spray. It contains the mess, and it allows for easy cleanup and reuse of the box over and over. I was pretty generous with Frozen Fog. Look at that shimmer. Isn't that beautiful? It actually is totally Frozen Fog. It is exactly what the name says it is. Then I've placed a little white gouache in my box. I do add a little water to make it move a little better, and we're going to splatter the background with droplets of white all over. Now, I am not going to wash out this box, but instead I will be reusing this white gouache for my remaining two cards. Fun fact is, if you add a little water to this, you can actually reactivate it quite a few times. Sometimes I leave it in there days and reuse whatever gouache is left. The more water you add, the more transparent it will get, but it's going to stay pretty opaque for me. Next, I am stamping the tree from the Winter Woodlands on some 110-pound weight white cardstock, and we will be using Distress Oxide inks. Don't be afraid of using your Oxide inks for stamping. Now, they may not be the quote-unquote recommended ink for detail stamping, but I found for everything I'm stamping today, they worked amazing. You can use any of your favorite inks to achieve similar results. Normally, with the Stampers Anonymous Tim Holtz stamps, you would have to fussy cut or use some sort of a scan and cut system or stamp it directly on your background and hope for the best. But Simon Says Stamp has come to the rescue this year and has created coordinating dies. This is absolutely amazing, you guys. I could not love any more that there are coordinating dies for all of these stamped images. If you have been around my community and my channel for a while, you know that I am not a huge fan of what a member had termed lovingly a couple years ago during Stamptember, cussy cutting. Fussy cutting, or cussy cutting as the case may be, is when you take scissors and cut out an image. And I am just not great at it, and I never love my results. I often will use a Brother Scan and Cut when I have to scan things that I don't have dies for, or I will find other ways to use the stamped images, which are both fantastic. Nothing wrong with either of those things. But I have to say, finding that there are detail dies for these stamps totally makes my day. This tree is gorgeous. I love it. Look at how wonderfully the die lines up with this tree, and I'm going to run it over to my die cut machine and die cut it. Now you'll notice that my tree has some brown on it as well. I did ink up part of the stamp with greens, part with browns, and it's okay if it overlaps a little bit. Now, as I was holding the tree up next to my background, I decided my tree needs just a bit of a snowy look as well, so I'm just going to add a little bit of that white gouache to it. While that's drying, and it does dry quickly, oh, look, even just the tree would be gorgeous on this background. While this is drying, we are going to grab Santa from Jolly Holiday. Now, I am such a fan of a beautiful vintage Santa. I just am. I think that you can't go wrong with a Santa like this. As I contemplated how I wanted to stamp Santa, I decided to go with Lumberjack Plaid. This is my favorite red from Distress Oxide. Now, don't be worried about stamping the whole thing in red. It looks amazing just like this. You also could stamp the image in a no line coloring ink. Sorry, my words were failing me. And color him in with some water-based markers or watercolor. I think that would be amazing. I ended up taking some black ink, some black soot, and I inked up his boots, and I'm stamping those. There's just going to be a couple of areas on Santa that will be a different color, his boots and his belt. His belt is slightly trickier than the boots. The boots, I didn't have to do any masking whatsoever to get that great detail, but for the belt, I am going to have to. You could also color it in with a pen or marker if you wanted to, but I decided to use Post-it tape, mask off the areas I don't want inked up, remove those masks. I know I'm off camera. Sorry about that. And then ink it up and stamp. So you will place the Post-it tape, ink it up, then you will remove the Post-it tape and finally stamp. It's a little bit of work, but look at that. I love the detail. Now, yes, there's a coordinating die for this Santa, which, I love him. This stamp set has dies for the peppermint stick, Santa, the Santa bust, or more of like his head and shoulder there. The greenery, absolutely amazing. I think also maybe a sentiment from here or so, if I'm not mistaken. There's quite a few dies that go with this particular set. So you can see how well the die lines up. I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. Now he's good size. The tree from Winter Woodlands is good size. This is going to fill the front of my card, but look how beautiful these two images work together. I love this. I think this makes the perfect card design. So once I have that all stamped, it's time to put it all together with finishing details. In this case, I need a sentiment and a few embellishments. On a scrap of black licorice cardstock, I'm going to use a powder tool and then stamp my phrase for this card, a jolly good Christmas. It is a long, skinny phrase from our Jolly Holiday stamp set. But what I'm going to do is stamp this, emboss in white, and then we're going to die cut it with a sentiment strip in a couple of areas. So you don't even have to cut it apart really. You could use a paper trimmer to cut it apart if you wanted to, but I was able to use my favorite Simon Says Stamp sentiment label dies with that natural break between jolly and good. Before I die cut, I did take a dry rag and buff away any of the powder from around my image, and then we'll simply die cut. I'm going to glue my two main images together where they overlap using a little liquid glue. We'll place foam adhesive all over the back of the design so we can pop it up. I always like that little bit of distance from a background to the focal point image if I have a lot going on in the background. I'm using my favorite Simon Says Stamp foam adhesive. We're just going to place this all over here. And then we can pop it in place. I will also be placing foam adhesive back behind a Jolly Good Christmas and popping that up right over the center of our focal point design. This, to me, was the perfect spot to place this. I want to add all of my embellishments, or all of my pieces first, I should say, before I embellish. The last thing we're going to do for this card is add some simple embellishing with my favorite rainbow splash gems from Simon Says Stamp. I love how these can be like multicolored lights on a tree, or even ornaments if you want. Any kind of gem or pearl embellishment is going to be perfect for this. I did go pretty hard and heavy with the embellishing as I felt like it balanced out the design. Once finished with this, I will glue the entire panel to a white top fold card base, and my first card is all finished. Taking another background panel die cut with the Snowflake Burst Pinpoint plate, we're going to ink this one with salvaged patina, going for that beautiful minty color for this one. This is going to be a landscape style card instead of portrait. I'm going to go about, 3/4 of the way down the panel, pretty much like I did on the last card, so that the bottom kind of gives the illusion, I suppose, of snow. It will help ground the bottle brush trees that we will add to the top of this card. Now, the bottle brush tree stamp set from Tim Holtz is such a good stamp set, you guys. The trees are in so many different sizes. It looks like there is 14 trees in this stamp set. Dies for every single one of them. And you might think it's tricky to line them up, but it actually is very easy to figure out which tree goes with, or which die goes with which tree image. I'm also adding white gouache and that frozen fog distress mica stain to this panel as well. We've got to be consistent. I love that snowy look. To stamp my trees for the background, I've got another piece of Nina 110-pound weight smooth white cardstock. I am going to ink up the top part of the tree with 2 shades of ink. In this case, Kitsch Flamingo and Festive Berries. The bottom of the tree, I'm inking up with Gathered Twigs. That's going to be the little, what I'm assuming is the wood dowel rod and spool or whatever wood block that the tree goes in. Now, once I've added Kitsch Flamingo, I'm going to blend in the Festive Berries. So that I don't get a harsh line, I will then take a blending brush and just kind of pounce that on there so that the blend is beautiful and smooth. Perfect every single time. Next, I'm going to take my next tree and do something similar. I ended up using, 7 trees on an A2 sized card. If you did a slimline card or a 5x7 card, you could add even more. I really wanted a variety of different sizes and kind of shapes of the bottle brush trees. There's everything from like the tall and skinny to a little bit more of a rounded cone shape. So definitely have fun picking out your favorite trees here. Next, I've got some spiced marmalade and ripe persimmon, and again, the gathered twigs for the bottom. Where the two colors meet, I am going to take my blending brush and kind of pounce it right there through the center so that I get a seamless blend. So pretty. Oh, I love it so much. For the yellow, we're going to use mustard seed and wild honey. I sped up the video just a little bit to save some time as I repeatedly do the same technique that I shared for the first two trees for all of the remaining trees. I will add the two ink colors, kind of use a blending brush to pounce out where they meet, and add the gathered twigs along the bottom. For my next tree, I will be doing a couple of shades of green, Twisted Citron, and Mowed Lawn for this cute little teeny tiny guy. For the big, tall, minty tree in the center, we're going to use Cracked Pistachio and our lucky color, the darker green color, which I can't think of the exact name. I was doing so well. And we're going to stamp that one. I got a little brown on part of the bottle brush, but I'm not going to worry about it because there will be some overlap, and I think I can just disguise that without having to restamp. For my remaining two trees, the blue is Tumbled Glass and Blueprint Sketch, and the purple will be Shaded Lilac and Wilted Violet. After we have all of our trees stamped, I am going to take all the coordinating dies, and again, these dies are from Simon Says Stamp to coordinate to the Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous stamp sets, line them up, and run them through my die cutting machine so that I can assemble a beautiful rainbow forest on my holiday card. I'm again going to pop up all of my trees with foam adhesive. This is going to take just a minute to achieve, as there's a little skinny spot, where the tree is popped up on that dowel rod, I suppose, if you will, and a thin line or a thin foam adhesive will work there. I have some thin foam adhesive strips that I love for this. We're going to build the trees one at a time, starting basically in the center and working our way out. I found this worked the best. I want them to overlap a little bit, but I don't want foam to be where any of the trees overlap so that it lays funny. We want everything to lay nice and even. I love how this little rainbow forest looks on that beautiful salvaged patina background. Didn't like that little piece of foam, so I'm going to remove it. I'm going to work my way out to the right, and then we will go back and work our way over there to the left. Look how cute our little rainbow forest is looking. Now, when I'm done with this, I will take a greeting from the Christmas Cartoons stamp set and stamp that right there, kind of in that little opening. You can see I have a little place card, or I'm using it as a place card for where the sentiment's going to go already with the stamp. I'll stamp it with clear embossing ink and heat emboss with antique gold embossing powder. Full disclosure, I stamped it in white first. I did not feel like the white showed up very great, so I put it back in my MISTI, stamped it again, and embossed with the antique gold embossing powder. Once the trees are all in place, I'm going back to the same Rainbow Splash gems, and we're going to color coordinate them back to each tree. I did pinks and reds for the pink and red tree, orange for the orange, and so on. I liked how there was a color for each tree that I wanted to decorate. This adds, again, the perfect finishing touch. And I did go ahead and embellish before I stamped my greeting. Probably should have stamped my greeting first, but I was very anxious to see how cute the bottle brush trees would look all decorated with their ornaments. Once this is all finished, I've stamped and embossed my greeting. I can then go ahead and glue this to a white side fold card base, and my second card is all finished. I know you guys are going to love playing with this bottle brush tree stamp set. For the third and final card, I again am using the Snowflake Burst Pinpoint plate. This time we'll be doing portrait again, and I will be blending in tumbled glass and blueprint sketch. The featured stamp set and dies for this is the Festive print. I love the snow globes in this set, but believe it or not, I didn't use the snow globes. I do generally tend to gravitate towards snow globes in my crafting, but I instead decided to stamp a little village with big, bold sentiments underneath. And in the sky for this one, we will be adding Santa and his sleigh from the Christmas cartoons. So I'm really mixing and matching between the stamp sets, kind of like I did for that first card, where I'm pulling different elements from different stamp sets and using them together. I wasn't super pleased with how I inked up this panel, so I'm going to have to do a little bit more work where I'm taking blueprint sketch in the center of the panel, and I'll work a little more of tumbled glass around the edges. Again, we will be using frozen fog and white gouache to add snowfall all over the background. Much like the bottle brush trees, we'll be using blends of color to stamp these solid house images. I'll be stamping Santa and his sleigh with black ink. In fact, I think I used VersaFine Onyx black ink to get a very crisp Santa image for that kind of silhouette of Santa and his sleigh in the sky. We'll be stamping our sentiments on black cardstock with white embossing ink and heat embossing with white embossing powder, and die cutting into sentiment strips again. But all of my trees and houses will be stamped with Distress Oxide inks. You can see that I've really made the most of that white gouache in my splatter box and used whatever was left, or as much as I could of what was left. I love that in the Festive print stamp set, you get tons of different greetings that can be mixed and matched together to build whatever sentiment you like, or gift tag whatever you like to create. I love the size and scale of the Santa and his sleigh, and the fact that there's a coordinating die. I think you're going to use this with all kinds of makes that you make. Makes that you make. Cards that you make, or tags, all of the good stuff. So I stamped all of my images. I did go ahead and just cut that part out of the video because it's very similar to the bottle brush trees with the blends on the houses. Same colors as well. And then the trees were stamped in different shades of green. Now we're going to assemble the scene. I did pop up my greetings along the bottom with foam adhesive. We're popping up our houses with foam adhesive, just kind of doing a nice mix of both there. We're going to glue the moon right down. We're going to pop up Santa and his sleigh. That will be a slight trick because it is pretty detailed. That's where some nice skinny foam comes in super handy. So I'm going to kind of piece that all together using a mix of small squares and foam strips. And I just feel like Santa and his sleigh ties this entire fun card together. Now, I did add multiple trees throughout to really make the village shine. Wasn't super happy with this one tree. I'm going to do a little adjust there. I like that better. And they are adhered in some with foam adhesive and some not. There's also little snowflakes. They do die cut. I stamped those with tumbled glass. I did die cut them. It's a single die that die cuts all the individual snowflakes. And I'll finish with a scattering of blue gems paired with those fun snowflakes in the sky. We'll glue this panel to a white top fold card base, and that rounds out our fun coordinating dies for Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous stamp sets for December 2023. Here is a look at all 3 cards in real time. Beautiful shimmer and shine with that distress mica stain and gemstones and beautiful colors and ink blending. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these 3 holiday cards. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye! Thank you so much for joining me today for another paper crafting tutorial. I love being able to share with this incredible community of crafters. I want to give a huge shout out and special thank you to my amazing Patreon members. If you're interested in joining Patreon, please click the link in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Patreon is a private community where you can support more of what I do. There is exclusive content, information, and behind-the-scenes content. Top-tier members will receive a handmade birthday card during your birthday month, access to D-Stash, and monthly exclusive lives, plus so much more. We would love to have you join our growing community. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, click the like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new paper crafting video or I go live. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time.